Hello, dear audience. A very warm welcome to Filmfest Munich, the 37th edition. A very warm welcome to our audience online as well, as we are live streaming this talk. I'm very glad to have you here. Our talk is called Syria, Shooting Film or Filming During War. I'm very, very pleased to have three very special guests here. I heard today, apparently it's the first panel with three Syrian filmmakers. So we're very happy to have this here. So let me welcome on stage our three filmmakers. I have Soudade Kaadan, the filmmaker and director of The Day I Lost My Shadow. Nice to meet you. You can take a seat here. I have Eyad Aljarod, the filmmaker director of The Greatest Sacrifice. Please come on stage. Nice to have you here. You can sit here. And I have Waad al-Kateab, the director of For Sama. Please come on stage. So you have your microphones next to you. Do we have 4 microphones so everyone has one? Great. So very nice to have you here. It's an honor. It wasn't that easy to get everyone here in time. So for example, Waad, we knew 2 days ago that you would come. How do you feel being here now?
It's the quickest visa ever I got, so it's just hours. And thank you for Laura and the festival for making that happen. Really, I'm very great. Thanks.
Yeah. We're really glad to have you here. So, my first question is, Soudade, you chose to make a feature film, as the both of you did documentary films. Why did you choose to do your first feature film and not a documentary about actually a topic that is very, very serious? Why did you turn it into a feature film and not a documentary, as you've shot documentaries before?
The simple and obvious thing was to do at that time is to make documentary, as I was a documentarist, and there were few filmmakers at Syria who make documentaries. We're in a country where it's like, there's no cinema school and the censorship is really high, so it was like almost like 10 filmmakers working. And when the war started, we suddenly have a very beautiful booming of filmmakers, and people want to say about the reality. So we have a new generation, a new wave of Syrian filmmakers who started to make documentary. And every human being is different. At this moment, I just couldn't. I couldn't make a documentary because I felt I was myself traumatized, and I felt myself as a subject. And I couldn't have this distance to take the camera as a filmmaker who think about its language or how to film a person and make a documentary. I needed the fiction and the magic realism of metaphor. What does it mean to live a war and to be traumatized and to survive a war to make my film? So somehow it was my only way to make it, to tell a story and to find how to say, to help me somehow, because I didn't know at that time that what I was expressing is trauma. We weren't a country that was familiar with war and psychological term. At this moment, the only image that I could find to express this was losing shadow. But each filmmaker finds its way, like Waad and Ayman.
Maybe you can explain us a little what your title means.
Okay,
The Day I Lost My Shadow.
The title of the film is The Day I Lost My Shadow, and it's about the story of the people during the war, Syrian war, who discover they lose a shadow every day while experiencing the war. And I don't want to burn, there's a screening today at 8 p.m., at 7:30. I would love you if you have time to come and watch the film. So I don't want to burn the story, the ending of the film, and to tell you what's happening, but it's about how do you go to this journey when you are just a normal citizenship during this war. And this is the title how it came out. Maybe I can tell also the story, like I was at this moment having a question, how do you make film during war? And what is cinema? Is it really capable of telling a story of what you feel without being graphic? And without being direct. And at this moment, I felt that cinema is not capable. If you're not showing people dying at this moment, you're not capable of doing this. And I'm not able, as a person, to film a person dying. So until this moment, I saw the images of Hiroshima the next day after the bombing. And if you saw the images of Hiroshima, you can Google it online. The city is completely burned. And you only see in black and white photos of shadows of the people. What's left is shadow of the people because it was natural light, like bomb light, so it burns the shadow of the people. And this year, Hiroshima celebrates the shadow of the people who left. And the moment I saw those photos, I felt it's completely the opposite for us. Like we are still alive in Damascus, but we somehow lost our shadow. And this is how the story started and the film started, and this is how I came back to cinema for me.
Thank you. Waad, maybe let's continue with you. I read that you had 300 hours of film material and that you actually didn't start out planning to make a documentary about for Sama. Sama is your daughter, right? So maybe you can explain a little how you turned your film into a film actually.
The main idea, or again, when I started filming, it was just to feel that we are still alive and we are doing something which is very, very important. So I do believe in the picture, and I do believe how important for us as Syrian to document these moments and save it for the history. And at that time, at the beginning, it was kind of challenging the regime and everyone who was saying there was no revolution in Syria. So we were protesting in the street and doing a lot of stuff, and at the same time, when you come back to your house, you watch the news on the formal channels, and they were saying like, there's nothing in Syria, everything is fine, while it wasn't at all. So it was kind of, we're doing something, and we need our voices to be out. And as many, many others activists at that time, we were just like shooting by our mobile phones, doing very, very small videos, anything who could be like witness of the beating the people in the street, arresting them, or sometimes even death. And just like these small clips were around the world with the channels and people who were supportive, like the human being movements. And gradually with the time, I started like, I pick up a camera, I wasn't really know how to use it, but I was like, okay, I can do this, and with the time I was developing myself through what I've shoot. And then with the time I felt that this is the only way to stay alive and to feel that there's something really important. So when for example, when I was pregnant with Sama, I felt that this is something really important, and I don't know when I could be killed. So I should really like record this and show the people outside how our life is really like, it's great for us, it's great for anyone. We are not just like numbers, or we are not just like people who you've seen at the news injured or death. We are a human being living our life, and we were trying a lot to live a normal life during that time. And that's why they became like more than 500 hours. And then, then we pick up with my fellow director, Edward Watts. We watched all this, and then we chose 300 to start with. And then it's became 95 minutes with a lot of things until now. Everyone who worked in the film, everyone, like our executive producers, the team, our editor, 2 editors, and other people, everyone has one story he wants to put it on the film, more than what it is now. But there is like a huge things. So we just were in the 95 minutes.
I mean, your film was a very personal film. Maybe, Eyad, you could elaborate a bit on your film. How closely connected, because the topic obviously is very closely connected as well. Yours a very personal approach. Yours, how was your relationship to your protagonists in your film? How did you discover them? Were they friends?
I'm not filmmaker. I'm mathematics teacher when the revolution started. But in the first, we feeling like we're starting with responsibility, just to document what's happening around us, and because also I feel I like to document these details because it's the first time happening in Syria. We don't see it that before. We don't feeling this feeling before. Everything it's new. Everything it's different. So I find it's very interesting to me to save this memory. We don't thinking in the first of the revolution, we will take all this time to fall the regime, or we feeling like in 6 months or 1 year we will finish everything. So I try just to save some events and history for me sometimes. And in the same time, we have the responsibility to have communication with different city in Syria. For example, just to say for the different, for Dar'a, we support you, we stand with you now in this situation. So this, we're starting like to work some things for the media, because you can't find all the time in any place in Syria many filmmaker or journalist or something, because this work, it's very hard also before the revolution. So we're finding ourselves, we need to do something to send this message inside Syria before to thinking about to make message out of Syria or to making filming or something. But after sometimes when we starting to feel the event it's still open and everything is open, and the event it's move more dangerous and more details, I start to think about to how I will save this details in different way, not like something for the media, because the media it's talking about just the politics for him in general. So I need to save our story, my story, and the story for the people living around me in this situation. Yeah.
But then would you see yourself as a documentarist in a way, that you're documenting a piece of reality these days and not as much as a filmmaker?
For me, it's a big challenge, because I have 2 films, for example, so I can say sometimes I'm filmmaker or something like this. I go to many famous festivals and these details, but I still looking for these things. It's just for me, it's one way help me to arrive with my message. So I using the filming and I using myself like director just to arrive with this message. But sometimes I will be out of all these details. Probably I have message, I can't make it like film. I will just write about that or take picture to say what I have inside me. So it's not in my dream to be like director or filmmaker or something like this, but it's helped me now to arrive with my message or what I have inside me. So it's like this.
Can I add in this? Because I'm really happy when Eyad start working, speaking about this point, because I think for anyone like us, we've never thought about what we should like be credited, or what should we be like when introduce ourselves. The only way I say like I'm Syrian, you know, it's many people who started working after the revolution, and we didn't thought at all like about we will do 1, 2, 3 because this is a film, and we will do this because it's working for the news, or it's more about just like saving our lives. And I sometimes feel very embarrassed when someone like ask me like, do you want to be directors or filmmaker, or you know, I don't know really, because I love this, I'm passionate about this, but I really don't care about what this could be, but I'm care about how people can like have this story and reach out for this story. And this is actually what we are, I think we're facing that all the time about who we are. And we may be just Syrians. I'm a Syrian woman, I've seen that, I felt very amazed with that, and I just want people to see as I've seen.
And maybe that's why it's important, this panel, because usually we have only one narration about Syria. And you see now 3 directors from Syria, from the same generation, with different backgrounds. Waad as an activist, and Ayman as a mathematician, and me as a filmmaker before. So you see 3 different approach of filmmaking, how to tell the story. And this is what we need as a Syrian. It's not only about curiosity about what's happening, or about information or inside story about Syria. It's about how we tell our story. because narrating and limiting our narration to one approach of Syria is limiting a human being. I believe that the more we have different stories, the more we have different approach, the more we might tell it in, like, we have to experiment and try. As a filmmaker, I try to find solution. I try to think how to narrate. For me, it's a reflective work because it's my way of telling the story. It's a way, it's my profession. It's something I wanted to do before and I'm still doing every day. This is how I would survive. For me, it's always about thinking about how I tell the story in language of cinema. Even if we didn't succeed as a filmmaker, a cineast, because we have a lot of cineasts in Syria, but we are still searching how to tell the story for. And you know what, to tell a story, you take a distance. You need time. So now I think at this time, it's been 9 years since the war. And since 9 years, a lot of story and a lot of fiction stories started. Now we have, I know, 2 Syrian fiction films also in preparation and shooting. Why take more time? Because it needs more reflection, how you will tell the story in fiction-wise. While the immediately work of activists is to activate the moment and to shoot it, and without really thinking about what I'm doing at this moment. It's more about act of courage. And that's why I was really proud of Waad when she filmed as a woman filmmaker for 5 years. You've been filming there. And I know with difficult and very dangerous situation. And sometimes the activist is more important at this moment to shoot than a filmmaker, because a filmmaker would think intellectually and would think how to do this. And for me personally, when I see someone like that is why I say a human being is more complex and our stories are more complex. And we need to tell it in a more different way. And that's why I'm grateful in Munich that to allow 3 films different, because usually festivals saying, we have 1 film from Syria, that's it, as it representing all Syria. Well, if you try, and this is why I invite you here to see the 3 films here, you would see 3 different stories and you might see like the complexity of human being during the war and how we try to tell the story and do it. So coming back about the Syrian filmmaker or cineast, for me, when I see someone in pain or in trauma, the reaction as a human being, as a personal human being, is just to shut the camera. And that's why you see like the reaction of pain is completely different from one person to another. The reaction of Waad and Ayman was just to take the camera and to film because they didn't have all this baggage of how to think, how to film about it. We just want to tell the story. And that's what we need now. We need both stories. We need to tell the story of what happened to Syria, but limiting the cinema only of reflecting what's happening as inside view of Syria, it's also limiting our language. As a filmmaker, because we have also a responsibility not only to tell the story, of thinking how to tell it. And it's like to make it equal a filmmaker in the world, because we don't ask a filmmaker in the world, why are you making this film? We accept that he wants to tell this story, and we ask him a personal reason, but we know that he has the right to think about his language, about how film to tell the story. Just asking Syrian filmmaker to make inside story from the war, direct story from the war, is asking them to limiting their narration and their like their skills and their ability and their their creativity somehow. So once again, I want to thank you for this panel. It's like for me, I'm proud to be part of this generation.
You're very welcome. Yeah, this is also interesting because we see very different aspects and facets of filmmaking, but also of reality and everyday life. And I thought it was really interesting. I read an interview with you, Waad, and you said that you didn't necessarily want to victimize people. You didn't want to show victims. You wanted to show human beings. And your approach is through not necessarily the eyes of your daughter, but through children, but all different generations, and how they actually lived through those difficult times. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's because actually, not just on the media, but even people who've like met Syrian before, we always like stamped by like specific things. Like for example, refugee, they should be 1, 2, 3. Like if they were in like Syrian even, you know, like we have 1, 2, 3. People just like think about that without really knew and ask these people about some details behind that. So I've just seen what we were in Syria inside, like we are not a terrorist as the regime and Russia were trying to speak about us. We are not just people who waiting to become a refugee outside. We are not, people don't know what they are asking for. We were people who really knew what this journey will be and how we will walk through this and how we will sacrifice everything as Eyad film about. So we knew that this is bad, and what we are waiting for could be very like worst. But we knew that this is the only way to live and to sacrifice for a better life in the future. And this is what my story was, just about people who were normal people. They were like, I have teacher, she was a teacher before, I was a student at Aleppo University, my husband is a doctor, and we've just like went through this journey as we wanted at the end to have our rights, as anyone in this room and anyone around the world wants his life to be. And we brought the children because we knew that this is the hope for the future, this is what we, like everything we've done because of them and because them too. So we need this normal life. And this is what really I've tried all the time, and it's just about normal people. We are not heroes, and we are not victims. We are just normal as anyone around the world.
Absolutely. Eyad, what is the greatest sacrifice? Can you explain it a little bit, because you picked that up?
I have two films. The first one, it's talking about the graffiti in Syria. It tells a story from the graffiti, but the second film, I moved to many different details to talk about two youngs, they starting with the demonstration and they active in the first of the revolution, then starting to move with all the changing in Syria, and I follow him about 3.5 years. We have many lines in this film. We're talking about many details, also because I tried in this film to stop filming about my city. So I take it very long time to finish this film. It's around 3.5 years for filming, and I spent it about 2 years or more for the post-production. Also because I'm working very, very independently without production company or producer or editor or anything. I do all the details alone with some help with some people, like volunteer job, we can say, because they don't taking a lot of money in the final time with the work. And also I would to thank him for that. So it's take long time and very hard work and very hard way to arrive to this festival like EDFA or Munich, or it's big challenge without big marketing, without all these details. But I try to explain the things out of the media, to explain the details. Also, many Syrians, sometimes they don't touch these details. It's not just for the audience out of Syria. Also, it's for the Syrian people, because there is many details. The people don't touch these details. They don't live inside these details. There is many big questions still in these places. Also, I have the same question sometimes about the people they using the gun, how they have the power to do that, how they killing, how it's very big question for me. I leave it all these details, but it's still a question in my mind. So I try to talk about a lot of details in this way from these two characters. I lived with him all the events they live it. The sad things that the two characters they matter, they dying. So it's very strong for me because there is not friend for me before the revolution, but I take it long time just to look about him, to be to choose this two character, to be honest with myself, because I think it when I start to filming the first film or the second film, there is many people very interesting to put him front of the camera and to make very beautiful film and to move with this film, because some people it's famous or something, but it's take a big discussion with myself to choose these people, to be honest with myself, and to I think it before I don't have this people will die, but I think it if I make it film and this film will be famous in some time, I will make these people famous also. So I will not be honest if these people, it's not good people. And that's happened many times. So I tried long time just to follow him without to filming, without to do anything. Then I start to make the relation with him because I working in very reality way. I don't use any voiceover or any writing on the screen. I try to get all the information and all the details, all the discussion from the people, not from me, what I like to say or to make effect about the audience with some poetry sound or something. I try to get everything from the people living there. And yeah, I'm in the film just because I'm filming, but I try to put myself out of the film.
Are there any questions from the audience? We have a microphone in the middle that you can use so that everyone outside online can hear us as well. Any questions so far? Could you maybe step up to the microphone? That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, we just watched the film, The Greatest Sacrifice, and so I think at the beginning I wanted to ask, is it able for you to go back to Syria? Because I think in Syria also the government will look at this film, and is this dangerous for you, or is it just free for you to go wherever you want? I think this is all important for the discussion here, of course.
Of course, it's not free now. We're all out. We don't have any choice to be.
The 3 filmmakers here can come back to Syria, by the way.
So, but the situation now in Syria, it's like 2 parts. One part, it's under the control for the regime, and we active from the beginning of the revolution. So from the beginning of the revolution, the regime tried to kill us or to catch us. And the second part now, it's have more control from the Islamic group. The Islamic group now, they completing with what the regime can't do it with revolution. So in the 2 sides, we can't go back to Syria. So we just watching everything happen in Syria now.
Maybe you can explain a little about your own biographies, because none of you live in Syria anymore. Maybe you can tell us about when you left, and then would you be able to go back at all, in a way?
Yeah. I hope if I can go back in some days, but yeah, I left Syria in the final of 2013 because I have many problems with the Islamic group in Syria. I take it some time in Turkey. I waiting to go back to Syria. Then Daesh have control about my city and in the area, ISIS. In the final of 2014, I have chance to go back to Syria. I go in secret way. I spent just some days, and I feel it's very hard to stay there. It's not about just dangerous situation because we use it that before, but it's because somebody will be happy if you die. I tried to think about the dying in different way when the Islamic groups start to grow in Syria. When the revolution start, we have chance like Syrian to have deal with the dying because we doing everything. We believe about everything we do it. We go together to the demonstration. We have very nice feeling. So we don't thinking in that time about the dying, or it's chance for us, and it's not easy to deal with the die in your life because it's a big question for us all the time. But when the Islamic groups start to grow and they will be happy if we dying, I start to stay on the life more and more. So I start to be more careful about all the details. So when I felt it's very hard to stay, I move it again to Turkey. Then I come with my first film to Rotterdam International Film Festival. But I still looking to go back. So I go back again to Turkey, and I try to go inside Syria in the final of 2016. And it's very hard journey. I spent 24 days. It's very bad days. And after these days, I feel it's no hope to be in Syria in the coming years. So now I'm out.
I lived in Aleppo since 2011 until 2016. And the situation there wasn't that good as like the free that we want. But for me, I really believed that, okay, this is a time where we should fight here from inside, not from outside. And this is a way that we can really make a change on the ground. So we had some like Islamic group, and we have FSA, which is Free Syrian Army, and we have also, we were in a place where it's out of the regime control. So the first, let's say risky that, okay, you could be killed, but you could be killed just because of shelling or bombing, but not because the regime can capture you. So the first one, I was, okay, the most important thing is not to be arrested by the regime. And that's what the East Aleppo give me this space about. It's not that free because like you can't say everything you want, but same time there's something you could fight for. And then we faced ISIS in Aleppo for maybe 3 months, and that's it. So we were in dangerous of that, and then we were fine. So as I said, it's not that free that we really want, but same time, it's a place where you can really live with these people. You have some problems, but it couldn't be to the point that they will kill you because you are an activist. And there's kind of like kidnapping some people, but it's very, very little. And when I left Aleppo to Idlib first, we stayed there for 2 weeks before I go out to Turkey. And it was just a personal decision about I don't want to stay there because I was pregnant and we had Sama. We were very shocked about what happened in Aleppo. So I decided not to stay. But I'm sure that, as Eyad mentioned, there's some of the extremists there, but I think they are not that huge control. They are controlling, but at the same time, there's more than 3 million civilians living that place. So as the regime and Russia tried to say this is all like terrorists, but okay, there's some people who are extremists or who are Islamic group, but same time we have like more than 3 million people who are just civilians, normal people, and they have the right to stay and live there. And what's going on now, it's something no one can really believe that the same scenario which we faced in Aleppo, it's happening now in Idlib. And the regime and Russia tried now to kill the same people and displace them and make them just like, not hard, but impossible to live anymore. And hopefully, like really with my film, I'm coming here to share the story face to face with the people and tell them about like what there is now in Idlib. It's more human being, more people. We have fighting, we have war, and we have battles, but also there's a huge amount of life and of human being who just wants to live.
Soudade, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, maybe as I said before, like we come from different backgrounds. We tell the story differently, and we try to tell it in circumstances that we can survive and somehow protect our families and stuff. But three of us, whatever we do, we can't go back now at Syria at this time, at present time. Even so, I always talk humanist, like in a humanist way in my films, and try to make it a direct way, talking about what's happening in Syria. So basically, I was living in Damascus, and I only left when at the end of 2012, when most of my friends disappeared, and it became a little bit risky for me. And somehow I became at the list, so I had to get out, even if not announcing at any moment that I'm an activist. I had to go out at this moment. I still come back to Syria now. I tell my stories in human way and indirectly. So when you watch the movies, a lot of Europeans would like to say, like, you're not explaining a lot what's happening and who's and stuff. And that's something we're facing about, like filmmakers, Syrian filmmakers, because you tell the stories and there is a local like audience that would understand immediately your story, and it would be too direct if you push it further, and there's a story the other audience would tire. So we have this dilemma while being filmmakers, senior filmmaker, how to tell the story internationally while being honest, while trying not to make it too directly for your first and local audience, because you don't see a European filmmaker trying to explain too much his movie for a Middle Eastern audience, and I didn't want to do this. I felt as an equal person, my film should be respecting my local audience, so it doesn't feel like I'm explaining something that is already evident to him. And then, if something missing, at least the journey, the emotional journey, while the film, it will be understood. So I never presented my film as a way of understanding Syria. It's as a way of feeling Syria. What is a human being, a normal citizen during the war can feel and understand. And this is another problem we have as a Syrian filmmaker. Most of us, when diaspora, exiled, immigrated, and we lost our first audience. We lost the Syrian audience that we tried to tell the story, and the first audience would be connected and would cry when they see the movie, or hug you when it's finished, and you say that we are happy that finally their story is somehow in the film on big screen. And so while we travel from one country to another, we try to find it, and hoping that while in this festival there's few audiences from Syria would see it, and at the same time we're so happy and grateful that it's coming around in the world, our films internationally and touching people. But we know that somehow losing our country, losing the first place of our shooting films, it's also meaning losing our audience, and searching for it. Like you are in exile, you search for this audience and how to reach it and how to touch it somehow, because it's important for them to see himself in the film, not only as a news material, as a victim material, a stereotyping immigration material. They want to see themselves a full individual, a full human being with all complexity, not black and white. And you see this in all the films, I think, the 3 films that are presented here. So that's why it's important for us as a filmmaker, as Syrian, to see our stories on screen in the same time. Yeah.
Are there more questions from the audience?
I just want to also, so I'm not a politician, but I always, when I talk about Syria, try to say when Islamist group occupied Syria, because I want to see also, like, there's a certain feeling in Europe that the terrorist group or the Islamist group started from the local community in Syria and then it's grown up. But actually what happened is came out from exterior and from prison from Iraq, and when it's opened in most of ISIS countries, ISIS ideology was started in Iraq and then came back to Syria with a lot of fighters coming from Europe and coming from Arab region, while at the beginning it wasn't Syrian. So for me, I was just like, as a Syrian who was a little bit of distance from them because Damascus is far away from them, we know that most of the Islamist group, or ISI, wasn't funded, and it was a kind of occupation for us, and grew up quickly with a lot of money, funded with a lot of money in Syria, where people were suffering, and people have to leave. So just something, they know, both of them, but we have to maybe add it for European audience.
Yeah, and add one important point about, like, the regime when in 2011 and 12, when the revolution was very wide through our cities, all of us, and they were like the Assad regime was trying to capture these activists who were very famous and who were really influencing the other cities and the other places. And he was like arrested like thousands of these people, while at the same time in 2012 he just released some people who were in his prisons, and these people became later the leader of this extremist group. And he knew exactly that doing that with the huge amount of violence to attack the normal people who could be affected with any idea, give them the peace and the feeling that we are dying for something important. And anyone who have that amount of violence, they will turn to something different from his feeling exactly. And this is what the regime was trying to support and make it very indirect way, but also in indirect way, because most of the people who were arrested by or kidnapped by ISIS later and by some of the extremists, they were wanted by the regime, and they want the regime, if he has the ability to kill them, they will kill them, and then ISIS continue this rule, and then the extremists. So it's more about really begins from the regime and ended up with the regime now.
Any questions from the audience? You can go ahead. Of course, ask another one.
No other questions. So I just, I have, okay, to the greatest sacrifice, because I've seen it. Okay. First thing, I was astonished about the like happiness, the people is going to die. Like the people, it's like a party. Often you showed in the beginning of the film, and they are fighting with almost nothing against all these huge tanks and whatever. But then the speeches or the discussions, they were so quick, and the subtitles in English, almost we couldn't look at them, because then it was over again. So was this, for you, were you thinking about this problem? Or do you think, no, this is the way the people is speaking so quickly, and often, okay, they are the same ones? And the second question at the ending, I didn't understand the last situation where the last victim, al-Jarod, was killed, but there was some cars on a bridge, and I didn't understand, was this an army or were there other types of people together with guns or whatever? What was the problem?
I hope if I understand it well, because I'm not good in the English, so sorry. About the subtitle, I do that just to come again to watch the film, to take some more details. And about Ad-Daur, yeah, we're talking about one of the character in the film, and we don't have a lot of details about how he died in the film. In reality, we have all these details, but I don't put it in the film. And I don't accept to share many details for the two characters, because I think about these details. If I'm in this place, I don't like to put this body in front of the people just to watch him after all this strong and power and the things he believed about, just to make it, to give the people chance to catch the dying. I try to save the idea he believed about it, not like a personality for him, because I don't try to make a symbol or hero or something in the film. We're looking just about the idea they believing about, and also what I sharing with him, the belief in many details, and about who is killed. This some of the question. Who is killed at Daur? Yeah. The army, that's a problem, but there was controlling the road or whatever. Yeah, it's very complicated about the control in this area in Idlib, because it's still moved between many groups, many power, many support from out of Syria. You can find many different kind of the Islamic group. Also, you can find many group with the revolution, but they all try to fight these groups, and you have sometimes the regime, it's coming on, then go out, and it's very complicated all the time, because Idlib from, also when we talk about this city in the film, my city, it's from the first city started with the revolution in Syria. So it's have all the changing, all the situation, and until now, when we're talking now, I think now it's some bombing on my city, and some people dying now, and also all my family is still there, all my friend, all my memory, all our dream, like Syrian, about the freedom and everything. So it's very complicated about the details and about the control, and also it's about what the media like to put in the who is controlling now. So it's very complicated in this way, but in different way, it's very clear if you're looking about all the story.
More questions? I have one, because, oh, you have one? Would you mind stepping up to the microphone?
So I think that you're very passionate about your films, and it seems to me that it's like a therapy as well for you and for the Syrian people as well. My question is, usually during a conflict for a long time, a way to survive every day when it's really horrible is humor. Could you tell us a little bit, do you have any anecdote or stories of like, it is hard sometimes to laugh when everything is hard, but you have to because otherwise you won't survive?
It's a beautiful question. It's kind of one of the most important questions we're having now as a filmmaker, and we think about it. You know, during the war, like people had a lot of humor. Like people living under like how we say it, in basement and trying to in refugee and shelters, they were always making fun and laugh, and they needed a humor to continue. But if this is from one side, but if you see the films that first 5 years of Syria war, I think it's now we are 6 years. No, it's been 6 years. 8. Wow, it's getting out. At 8 years of Syrian war, most of the film lacked of humor, because even if the real life of Syrian during the war was a lot of humor, shelters of humor, this is the way of surviving and stuff. But you know, to tell a story with humor, it's like what you say, as Woody Allen says, comedy is tragedy plus time. You need a distance to laugh from something. Like now you can laugh of past experience you had that is very painful, but at this moment to tell it, you just tell it painfully. So now you're starting to see movies after like 8 years of revolution and at the war, you start to see movie with humor, and you see it now in a little bit of the documentaries, and I made also last film, I made after the one that I lost my shadow here, I made a short fiction film with a humor, and it also won Grand Jury Prize in Sundance, so I was very happy and very nice surprise because very low budget movie, and it was appreciated by humor, because somehow now we are able to tell the story by humor. Now I can laugh about what's happened. But at that time, since the pain was really here, and it was difficult to survive it, even if daily use we do it, we couldn't say it in our films. The next film I'm preparing now, also the fiction film I'm preparing, which is Nuzuh, was in Atelier de Cannes. It's all about telling our story about a Syrian refugee. Syrian in Damascus, who refused to leave his house while everything is bombed around him because he doesn't want anyone to let him call a refugee. So all it's about a humor of why everyone is like, you see why everyone is trying to be refugee or like going to leave Syria. You see this person who's trying illogically with madness to stay in his house even when it's completely bombed. And this humor makes you feel what it means and why a refugee person makes this decision at this time.
Yeah, this is in fiction, but like in documentary, and it's not my opinion, but like my fellow director, he was all the time, Edward was like, he was shocked first time when we watched all the material, because like there's bombing now, and 1 second after that we were like laughing or something or make some jokes. So some people here who watch the film, they like, you've seen through all the time how we were just laughing on something maybe very stupid, but at the same time this is the only way to be survive and to feel that you're still alive. And some people like feel that, you know, how you are laughing in this situation, but we were. And same time when someone of your close friends like being killed, and at night when you're sitting with his body, you were saying something about how humor he was, and this is the only way to feel that, okay, they've killed him, but no, he's not dead, because everything he was telling us and everything we shared, it's still like in our souls, and really it's the only way to be survive. So if anyone like watch the film next, remember me in this thing especially. It's about really human being, and it's not about limited with a place like Syria. I was in Ireland 1 month ago in Belfast, and they have a war like not so far from now. It's maybe 10, 20 years. And I was working with my executive producer. She's from Belfast. She was like explaining to me something, was laughing. And she said, like, you know, the audience, when they've seen your film here in Belfast, they were laughing like very, very much more than even what you should like laugh. Because these people know exactly this humor, how they were like living with this situation, and same time they knew that this is something really funny, because this is the only way you feel that, yeah, I'm alive and I'm survive and I can really be more stronger than everything happening around.
But Waad, the things that you see now in your film, which is very beautiful, and humor in documentary thing, like if you see all the film documentary, and we must have saw out of the documentary, usually it was cut out in the editing, because it's kind of, even like, because I was editor with a lot of movies, but and was uncredited because the situation, but I saw a lot of flashes and footage when there was a lot of humor, but somehow we weren't able at that time as Syrian filmmakers to allow those flashes to be in the film because it was so painful, so urgent to tell the scream of people. Now this feeling of saying it humor to show this, that actually been since year one in Syria's war until now, it's now that you can say it. That's what I'm saying. Now, after time, you can laugh about it. You can show it in a movie while confident that this is not disrespectful for the people who are in pain. That's kind of what editing tell in life, in documentary or not. So.
Are you speaking also about documentaries?
Yeah, it's a documentary. Like, because editing is in documentary is part of telling the story.
Yeah.
And those love moments that were in a lot of rushes, in a lot of films before, weren't even, they didn't see light, like your film. Like your beautiful film is about humor, about people laughing after bombing, about surviving with joke, and that we didn't see before. We have like amazing documentary films before, like during 7 years, and we rarely have this. Because during editing, somehow the filmmakers didn't allow this. So time somehow made us feel comfortable to tell the story with a humor.
Yeah, maybe you are right. And maybe the other also point, because this is my life, you know.
Yeah.
So because it's my life, I had know that I don't have that like space, because I felt this and I know that this is, even if people saw us laughing in this, you know, it's fine. Yes. Because it's really, I was very close to the point that I was the people who were there. So maybe others, because they feel that, you know.
But if you saw, because I saw your films previously too, and you made a lot of beautiful short documentary. One of them was nominated to Emmy and got an Emmy award. And if you see your previous films, there's no humor that you have here now. The first films you made with BBC and Channel 4, the small things, the short documentary.
Because that's the news. It's different.
Even the documentary
no,
small.
This is my first feature. Yeah, but at the news you can't be very close to the people. You can't show a lot of details about their life, but just you need to make the urgent things, because it's 5 minutes. And 5 minutes of very specific story, and you are going with more information about what this and why this happened. But in documentaries, which we allow us to go behind the scenes and in the background of these people and why they were like this and why they did this, and you have all the free to be like as you are there. And in my film, especially this one, it's more about you have that experience. You could go through my journey and be me and see this and like try to be pregnant, for example. So it's more about, you know, you are very, very, very close to the point that you are there. And maybe this is something.
And then also, like, all the scenes with your daughter come to my mind, for example. They just show how you want to hang on to this little everyday life that you have left. And those scenes are often very funny, where you're just like in your room, and then you see something that she does that she shouldn't do, or something. It's just a piece of reality that you don't have otherwise, because you're afraid of the next bombing or the next dangerous situation. So for me, it really added to the story to make it a humane story and to really be there, just what you said. That really added to it. Yeah. But is there another question from the audience? Oh, back there. Would you mind stepping up to the microphone? Thank you.
Good evening. I've just watched your movie, Greatest Sacrifice. And actually, I think I have two questions, I'm not sure. The first is, there was a lot of talk about martyrs and like it seemed to me that all the young men that died, being from shootings with the army, or also Daour in the end, they were all called martyrs. And that made me feel very uncomfortable. It's very strange for me. So I would be interested in, is this notion of martyr, is this something that came up with the war? Is it?
Microphone.
Sorry, about the word matter, you mean
Yes.
give you some feeling like Islamic word or something like this?
for me, it would never. I think I've never used it in my life for my to describe anything. So that's my first question. Is it something that does not feel strange for you, and is it something that you think might have changed during the war? And my second question, it might be inappropriate, so if so, please disregard it. But when you think about your future for Syria, do you think that, since you know your own society and have also been living in Europe now, do you think that European-style democracy or our way of life would be appropriate, or is that what you would be hoping for Syria, or do you think, or do you disagree, because you know both sides? And I think we mostly think European-style democracy, yeah, that's the best. But I don't know, is that something that you would agree to? But maybe that's not the setting for it. Yeah, that were the questions.
Yeah, thank you. I just will take some help to understand very clearly the question, then I will start to talk. في شيء بخصوص أوروبا شو كان السؤال؟ بعد سقوط النظام. Yeah, I will try with my bad English. About the word materi, it's part from our cultural. We use this word, and you can find it. We have some scientists talk about this word, and it's described not just when somebody fighting and then he die, we saying materi. We're using these details in many ways. Some people saying if somebody go to the work and he die in the way, he's materi. If somebody go to bring the food for his children and he die in the way, he's materi. So it's part of the cultural, and we use this word to describe in special way the people fighting for what they believe about, to put him in different level from the dying, because we have different between if somebody just die because he's sick or something, and in the second way, if somebody fighting for something he believe it about, and it's to put him in different level from the dying. So we have this describe. The word in our culture.
This is more about respectful for these people, because they sacrificed something or tried to do something unusual, and for example in this situation, because they were believed that the death is something they don't really care about, that they don't mind if they were killed because of that. So this is more about give him more respectful because he died.
And even for me, because I was somehow working on my first feature film, and we have the thing with the people we said martyr, and I discovered also that the European audience that might relate martyr to a Islamist or jihadist thinking, dying for a religious cause, while for us in the region, martyr is someone who dies just for a cause, and he could be atheist or agnostic or non-believer, and still be called a shaheed, a martyr. So what I did in my fiction film to avoid this conflict, to this, even if the actor saying shaheed, I would translate a dead person or a corpse, because I knew I didn't want this interpretation to have with the audience to relate the activist death with a religious cause. So
it's more traditional. It's not about just
but you're saying in my case I did this. I know in Syria, when you say for someone who is dying for a cause, you just call him a dead person or a corpse. It's non-respectable. So you always have to call him shaheed or martyr. And while if this meaning would have something really completely different, what you want for a different audience, I tried to and it was last moment, while working at ZDCP, I noticed this, so I said, people asked me, and so I said, let's change it to not confuse the audience.
Just I will add one sentence. In the same time, this is what the people saying. It's I can talking a lot about this word in many different way, but I just have the same what the people doing, what the people describe the dying in this way, and what the all we describing that in. So the people saying martyr, I will put in the film martyr. I will not change something just to have to be out of some thinking, and it's good to have discussion about these details. Yeah, and about the second question about the future for Syria or for the world. After this experience, what we're living in Syria in these 8 years, we don't stop now with about Syria. We're thinking again about all the idea about freedom. Is it true, or it's just a dream? I think it's just a dream for the all, not just for the Syrian now. And about the democracy, many countries, it's very democracy country, and they sharing now in Syria with the killing. About all the idea, we have many different thinking. For me, I still looking for the freedom, but I think it will still in my dream. We will not get anything in the reality way in all this world, not just in Syria. What we looking for now, just to fighting for the life, for the people, they don't getting any chance to look about the life. They just born in this situation. They don't decide to be with us, like active with the revolution. They just finding himself in this situation. We need the life for these people. We're taking our chance to go out of Syria, to see some part of our life in the university, in any place, but many people, they still don't have chance for the life. What we're looking for now, just to have chance for the life. But when we talk about this idea like freedom and democracy and it's philosophic way, I think it's not just to talk about it. And about the control, yeah, I very like Europe and all this country with the situation and with the freedom they have it. But if you go more deep with the details, you will find many ways it use it to have control about the people. In the Middle East or many countries, we still have we're using the religion's way to have the control and to building this group and to have this fighting and to be like leader with the religion's way. That's not work now in Europe, but it's work in different way. It's work with them when we're talking about terrorists, about this idea, when we're talking about how ISIS it's make it, how much ISIS it's important for all this world. ISIS, it's very bad, it's very dangerous, but it's nothing in reality way. When ISIS start to grow, it's very small group, and any country can to finish him. It's game. We're laughing about all these details when we're looking about all the world fighting ISIS. ISIS in very small area in Syria. Syria, it's very small in this world, and nobody can finish it. It's game. They all need these details. They all need the terrorist idea. I will say for the people to vote to me, I will save you from the terrorist. If I'm out, the terrorist will come. I can't say that without to have like this group in the world. I think it's big game, and it will take long talking about that. I will not go more in this way, but yeah, this is a short talk.
I will add on Eyad idea, because really we lost all the trust with the Western community and Western governments, let's say, and the Security Council or the UN, all this let's say fake organization which they were trying to help in a way which is not helpful at all. And unfortunately we changed our battle and our struggle. Instead of we still fighting for our freedom, we just now fighting for our justice. the justice which all of us, I think, we don't believe that we will get it one day. And like what he said is very important about ISIS, because if you just look to any of the documents that Human Rights Watch, for example, like document about Syria, you've seen like 3% of the destroying of Syria, and the death is the responsible of that is ISIS, while 95% is because of the regime. And in this situation, like all the governments have one union to finish ISIS, while just like the regime is just the place next to them, and no one care about that. So they really don't care about the real numbers, but they just like care more about how they became more rules for like ruling their countries and ruling the other countries around. And it's just about, you know, how we different, like thinking about something, while Russia put everything to help the regime to be like rescue and to do what he did, while America, the British government, other like countries, they just like watching that. And just like, for example, Trump last 2 weeks, he just tweet on Instagram, like on Twitter, like Russia stop doing that in Syria. Like, you are president, you are not an activist to write on Twitter. This is what I can do. You can't do this. You should do something really to stop that, not just like tweet something on Twitter. So it's really more about, we really, like, I hope we can really still have that feeling about all this principle about the freedom, the dignity, and the things which we need it to be really, it's real, it's not fake. But I hope something really will change to give us that feeling again.
I think there was one more question in the audience. Is it still on? I saw one more hand. No? No more questions? Okay, then maybe one question from my side again. Do you think you will always be making films about Syria? Or do you think that it's just the topic that is always going to be apparent in your films? Are you working on your next project?
When I write my stories, it's about Syria. I'm a Syrian filmmaker, and from my experience, whether it's now inside Syria or inside. But saying this, telling a story is universal. If we manage to tell a story about Syria and touch the audience and move the audience and travel around, so we are able to tell any story, this is what I believe as a Syrian filmmaker. So while working on this project, which is about Nuzuh displacement in Syria, I'm preparing also 2 projects, one about Lebanon and one with a US the company. So because I believe, like as I said, storytelling in cinema is universal. Once you manage to tell the story, you will tell it. And at least as long as it's sincere, as long as it's like it represents me somehow, and telling the stories that I like, that are passionate I like, I will do it. But when I write, immediately it goes to my stories, my experience, and my point of view as a Syrian filmmaker.
How about the others?
Yeah, I think I will still working about Syria, because we're not finished until now. And some people sometimes they think for me, after to have to film, and I start to, some famous for some people, small groups, not in general. They think, why you don't start with fiction, for example, or to work about something out. Because we're still hanging with all the details in Syria. I still working also in the documentary, because I start with many things it's still happening now in Syria. So I hope to be free out of these things, to take some rest on the life. It's yeah. So we will for me, I will still work about Syria until to have some solution in Syria.
I have some passion about doing films, and especially now, every time I'm going to any place, I'm thinking about some ideas about that. And each time I feel like, no, I will do just something related to Syria. And really, it's more about the responsibility that, like, we can't just, turn our back for doing something else and like leave what we went through and what we knew that it's really important. So it's about the lack that is happening until now. So really,
have to
we
add more.
need that. We need to stay stuck with our, unfortunately, you know, our destiny, let's say, and they need us too. So yeah, I prefer to stay with Syria.
I have to add, because my friend from documentary background feel when we leave the story of Syria or we go to fiction, as we are leaving the Syrian topic, or we're leaving our voices and we're going back to other subject and doing something else, which is completely different. When you make fiction film, you touch much larger audience. A lot of people go to see a story. Saying a story in a fiction-wise doesn't make it less activist or less touching to people or less telling the story about Syria. It's actually more challenging, because you have to have more budget and you have to tell the story, to make a story, to believe people and to touch them around the world. I believe, and we come from different backgrounds, so I understand your feeling.
No,
Can I continue? I continue.
we both agree, actually.
No, but let's
about
continue.
fiction.
And
about
coming,
fiction.
but coming from fiction background, when I have an opportunity as a filmmaker to work with an industry that's completely different than mine, whether it's based in US or in UK, this is something I have to say, because I believe if I take this opportunity, I will have more voice to tell my story later. If I'm part of the international industry, even if it was stories that are not about Syria, and I could prove myself in this industry, later when I have this project about Syria, I will say it will have more audience and will be a different scale. So it's not only about making stories that I enjoy telling differently about Syria. I was still saying that my script is about Syria. It's also about telling your voice in the international industry and influencing and to be more, to tell our stories, because this is our platform, the only way we can tell story.
Yeah, believe, like, really what you've said. I agree with you exactly, but what I'm saying, it's not about maybe my next project will be fiction. I'm speaking about, so I will stuck with the things that related to our life before. I don't want to be doing, you know, like about, I don't know, something in China, or maybe in China if it is related to the Chinese government rules about Syria. So I'm just thinking about, I personally don't want to be out of
The
this.
similarity between us and China is very big, by the way. You never know.
Yeah.
But you can really feel that in all of your films, that you just have such a strong connection to your identity and your country, and you just have so many stories to tell. So I would say we have one more question from the audience, if there is a one. Yeah.
Would you like that, sorry, that the young people...
Could you go to the microphone? That'd be great, so that everyone can hear it.
If something that young people around the world could remember from your films, like, because you're like multiplicators, what would you like that to be in like 2 words?
Our films, or in general?
Films and in general.
That's a hard one.
Yes.
In 2 words, you probably have an entire essay on it.
If like young audience feel themselves in the film, like that, you know, at the end when you watch a movie, it's the experience of watching a movie and finding yourself and finding real emotion, because there's nothing for me as emotional as watching a movie. If you go there, you see all the spectrum of emotion in 1.5 hours and 2 hours. While in life, it can take you more time to have those emotions. And even in novel, it takes you 1 week to get to the full emotion spectrum of the personality. While a film, it's like, that's why people go to movies, why they go Saturday night to the movie, because they want to have this experience, emotional experience. And somehow, even it's public, it's intimate at the same time. So for me, this is to find yourself, like to find your voice in a film.
Well, specifically in my film, it's really the moment when we left, when we went out.
Eyad, would you like to add something on that?
No, I think it's very, very hard question when you talk about a lot of details. I think it's many details. It's important, and I can't say this more important from this. I just put the question, and they will stop with what they touch him in the way. Yeah.
So you were asking if what they feel from our film, this film, or in movie experience in general?
No, from your
From our film, sorry, I felt in movie experience in general. That's why I thought it's very loud. For me, the image of losing shadow, like if somehow they would think about it, like how emotionally, like you can lose a shadow in a film, and what does it mean to you, and you keep this experience with this image with you with the day thinking of it, because I noticed that people don't notice their shadow. And if people don't notice their shadow in life, and somehow it was very difficult to make them notice the shadow in my film too. We had a lot of work on sound design and effect and editing and test and error until people notice it, because people don't notice it. And if they don't noticing, it means they don't noticing their presence, their body, and in the moment. So yeah, this is.
It might be very emotional when they leave
Yeah.
the theater.
Yes, theater. I know there are. I know in our 3 movies, like, because also it's about Syria, it's about war, about trauma. We're trying to stream our experiences. I know this, like in each screening, people go out like say like traumatizing and emotional, and it's not just how to say entertaining movie for the moment. In later stages, now I'm telling you, with time and when you more like experience, mature with the language, you try to, at the same time, to pass what you want and to touch people and move them while still and like keep them entertained and keep them back to the audience, to your cinema, because this is important too, that people watch our movie one second time. We don't make a movie for 2-5 person and to have larger audiences while keeping the art quality high.
What would you say, like, your passion?
Could you go to the microphone so that everyone can hear it? Because thank you.
I mean, like, you're very passionate, and when people are very passionate, they can transfer that passion. So they might want to think about creative ways of becoming activists themselves, spreading the word, talking, and young people might become politicians. They might become, very important people in society and influence others. That's what I meant. So I think it's very important what you do, and when the conflict is done, and I'm sure it will be over, then it's going to be seen as history. So
thank you. It is somehow, and we hope so, and that's why it's a life and death. For telling a story about Syria for us filmmakers is a life and death question. For all of us 3 filmmakers, we put our life and family life to tell the story, because somehow it's not only telling about story. We believe the necessity of telling it now, and even if I'm not that optimistic to think that a film can change the world, because we saw 8 years of the war without changing anything. But we believe, like, if I can, like one person is a screening too, think about think about happening in Syria, that's enough for me as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I can add something. Also, it's about when we talk about the future, or to do some change or something. For me, I'm out of this detail from long time. I'm sure my film will not make any different in any place. Now, and I tried many times just to find reason for this work, because I believe this film will not make change. It's just message from the people to the people, because the political way, they know about all the details and they moving with this game. So I try all the time just to find the reason for this work. Like anything I do it in my life, I try to find reason for that. So now I think we also have very big fighting in Syria, not just from the Syrian, also from the many people working about Syria. It's about the history in Syria. They all try to write this history in the way for him. So everyone try to save the history like what he believe, and they all try to playing in this history. And that we use it before in Syria. We leave it that when the regime have control on Syria. We have all the class in the school, we study the history, and when we have chance to get some book or to look about something, we finding everything it's liar. It's nothing. It's true about the history for Syria. You can find, of course, something is true, but it's moving with the political control for the regime. So for me, I just try to save memory for the people will coming later, like when I find it some people saving memory for me. But about the changing, I think we will not change anything now.
I'm very shocked that Eyad is very honest with himself, because I have the same feeling sometimes, but at the same time I'm doing everything as my film will change everything. So, for example, we're planning next month to do a screening in the UN, with before they've taken a decision for Idlib now, and I feel that it will really make no change, but same time I'm still like speaking very optimistic and like pretend that it will make difference, and that's why I'm sharing the story now. And this is maybe just because I feel very disappointed of the situation and for the people who still there, and same time I feel that okay, this happened 3 years ago with me, and really I don't want to happen again now. And it's really very complicated and very bad feeling, you know, about, yes, we can't really make a difference, but we should. We should try even if we don't have that belief. So you are very brave, to be very honest.
Isn't that very human to never give up and always try to be helpful and find a solution to anything?
Somehow I believe in this too.
Yeah, thank you.
This is actually a very beautiful ending, to end on a positive note, and the hope and that we will, or you and your films will actually make a difference, and that the entire situation will change. So I think we have to wrap it up now. Thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this panel discussion. For all of you who haven't seen the films yet, you will be able to see all of them, because there are plenty more screenings. We just gonna miss yours actually. So The Day I Lost My Shadow is screening almost right now at 7:30, but there's gonna be another one tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning at the film school, the local film school. And then you will be able to actually go and see The Greatest Sacrifice on Monday at 3:30 at the film school, and on Tuesday at 10 late at night, a late night screening, so to speak. And then you will also be able to see For Sama tonight at 9 at the Rio, so which is really close to here. So you can
there's
get
no tickets anymore.
Oh,
please no.
It's sold out. So maybe you can sneak in. Maybe there will be last minute tickets. That actually sometimes happens.
Yeah.
And then on Monday at 3:30 at the Münchner Freiheit Cinema.
So tomorrow you should choose between Eyad film and my film.
Uh-oh. So let's not fight here right now. So thank you so much for having you.